Steele. I'm a holistic nutritionist and the author of the recently published vegan cookbook, Get It Ripe. Today we're going to be making flax maple cookies. They're one of my favorites. They're also a big hit on my weblog, domesticaffair.ca. And one of the things that makes them really great is that they're really simple to make. They only require 6 ingredients. Most of those ingredients are actually can be locally sourced, in particular in my bioregion, which is in Ontario. And yeah, they only take a few minutes, and they're just really enjoyable for people. They kind of bake up like shortbread texture a bit, so we don't use any leavening agents like baking soda or baking powder. So to start, we're gonna get some spelt flour. I like spelt flour because it's not as high an allergen for people or an irritant as wheat flour is, but it bakes up pretty similarly. One thing that's good to know is how to measure spelt flour, so or any flour for that matter. Basically what you want to do is use a dry measure as we're doing here, and you want to level it off. Whoop. And that's how you're going to get your measurement, and you're not going to shake it down because that would compact the flour. That's the kind of thing that people end up doing a lot if you use this kind of measuring cup, because you're looking for it to measure up with a particular line, so you kind of shake it down and then you don't get an accurate measurement. So we're going to do it one more time. So we're using 2 cups of flour. And you can use light spelt flour or whole spelt flour. Either one's fine. I use whole spelt flour because it's using the whole grain, which is a good idea for health reasons. And so now that we've got the flour, we're going to throw in some flax seeds. I keep my flax seeds in the freezer, and the reason that I do that is because they have essential fats in them, which are really sensitive. And when I say essential fats, I mean omega-3, which is, a lot of people have heard of omega-3, but it's a really great anti-inflammatory for your body. But because the delicate oil, if you leave them at room temperature, they can go rancid pretty fast. So we're going to put in some of those. After that, we're going to throw in a bit of cinnamon. Cinnamon is an amazing spice. It's actually really great for balancing blood sugar levels. I mean, not the quantity that you're getting in the cookie, but if you were eating more of it in a day. And finally, we're going to throw in some sea salt. And I really prefer sea salt, not only for its flavor, but nutritionally, over table salt. It just has more minerals. It's less refined, which is great. So we're going to whisk all these things together for even distribution. If you just start throwing all the wet and dry ingredients together, then you just get, like, you can get clumpy bits of cinnamon or salt or that kind of thing, and you wouldn't want that in a cookie. So now that I've whisked this together, kind of break things up a bit, we're going to throw in our wet ingredients. There's only 2 of those. The first is sunflower oil, and I like sunflower oil better than something like canola, which tends to be genetically modified, but it's a nice neutral tasting oil. And also this particular oil was grown and processed right here in Ontario, which is nice. So pour that in. The nice thing also about if you pour oil into a measuring cup before you measure your other wet ingredients, then all those other things will slip out. It's especially useful for molasses, but for maple syrup it's also good because it can be sticky. So after we put in our oil, put in our maple syrup. And this stuff is great. It actually comes from a local farm. I can buy it in bulk at my food co-op, which is nice. But I mean, maple syrup really is everywhere. But the reason why it's nicer than using white sugar or something like that is because it comes from, it's locally sourced in this region, like I said, and it has more minerals in it. And like zinc is one, and manganese is another. And yeah, it's good stuff. It has a nice flavor to it, which is definitely going to show up in these cookies. So we'll just scrape this out. Now we're going to mix them together. So basically what you want to do, you don't want to overmix, but you just want to make sure that you're not seeing the flour anymore. It should all get absorbed in there. Depending on the dough, sometimes, or depending on the spelt flour, sometimes the dough is kind of wet, as it is today. One thing you can do right off the bat is throw in another couple tablespoons of flour. Just get rid of some of this stuff, and we'll put that with the cookie sheet. So here's the cookie sheet. I'm always a bit of a cluttered baker, I have to say, but I like to use parchment paper instead of oiling the baking sheet because you can use the parchment paper a few times before having to wash it. And also I like using this particular parchment paper because it's unbleached. You can probably find unbleached parchment paper at a lot of health food stores, if not at your grocery store. Just ask for it as well. So we're going to scoop out these cookies. Cookie scoop is a great tool. Unless you make cookies like once a year, it's a really good investment to make to get a cookie sheet or to get a cookie scoop. You can get them in varying sizes. I find this is a really nice size for cookies. It's maybe like 2 tablespoons or so. But you can make them in any old size you like. Just if they're bigger, you might want to bake them for a little bit longer. If they're smaller, maybe 10 minutes instead of the 12 minutes that the recipe calls for. Let's dish these out. And they're not going to spread too much. I mean, I've given them a decent amount of room, but they're not actually going to spread too much because they don't have any leavening agents in them. But the unique particular design about these cookies, I'm just making them a little rounder, is that I press on them with my fingers to make a little wavy pattern. You can really do this with any cookie as long as it doesn't have big chunks in it. I do it with these ones and they're recognizable as my flax maple cookies if they have this particular print. With my 2 fingers to kind of make a little wavy design. You can just press them down like normal if you like, but I like to do them like this. And they also just break nicely when you're eating them. So now that we've got that last cookie pressed, I'm going to put them in the oven. As you remember, it's preheated, and we're going to just slide these in here. I just keep a rack in the middle of the oven. If it's in the middle, it just gets good air circulation all around in there. Close up the door, and I make sure to definitely set a timer. And to press start, that's also really important. So I know that these cookies take 12 minutes in my oven, and they should in most ovens that are accurate in temperature. If you're not sure how accurate your oven is, you might want to get a thermometer, and if you think your oven's too hot and you don't have a thermometer, you can check them a few minutes early. It's not that dangerous to open the oven a little bit soon. It's better than burning the cookies, and you can just lift it up with a spatula and see if they're getting kind of golden brown on the bottom. Sounds like they're done! And now we'll just take them out. Ooh, they look lovely. So like I said, they didn't spread that much because they didn't have any baking soda or baking powder. And what I typically do is I let them sit on a baking sheet for about 5 minutes to cool and to harden up a bit, firm up a bit, before transferring them over to the cooling rack. I'll use something flat like a spatula so that I'm not making them too flexy, breaky, that kind of thing. Here they are. They're firm enough to handle right now, so just slide them one by one onto the cooling rack. The reason why we want to put them on a cooling rack is so that air can circulate around them and allow them to cool thoroughly before storing them in a container. If they're still pretty warm when you put them in a container, then there'll be condensation in the container and the cookies will stay they'll get kind of moist and not crisp up the way they should, and then they won't last for very long. These cookies should be okay for a couple weeks if stored properly, but you gotta let them cool first. Anyway, I like mine with a glass of almond milk, but it's really up to you. And thanks for joining us here today. Stay tuned for another episode.